Hi friends, welcome back to Snail Story. Today, we'll walk together through a journey of betrayal, truth, and finally freedom. If you're ready, let's begin. Millie Carter stood by the sink, her cracked hands clutching a faded dish towel. The morning sunlight slipped through the curtains, scattering sharp golden streaks across the kitchen counter. On the counter, rows of prescription bottles sat in two neat lines, each one marked with a colored sticker. This had been her rhythm for the past 4 years. Medications, doctor's appointments, restricted meals, and an endless list of chores. Outside, sparrows chirped somewhere among the trees. But inside the house, there was only one sound: Mark's voice. "Emily, did you remember the exercise time? The doctor said 10 a.m. Don't forget again like last time." His voice drifted from the living room, steady and cold. Emily set the last plate on the rack, wiped her hands on her apron, and answered in a low, controlled tone. "I remembered. I wrote it down." Her eyes flicked toward the whiteboard on the wall. Every inch of it was filled with her handwriting. Times for medicine, meals, physical therapy, follow-up visits. Somewhere in the margins were small reminders for herself: buy milk, change the sheets, call mom, but most of them had been crossed out. Her mother once said, "You live like a full-time nurse, not a wife." Emily knew her mother was right. But she had grown used to repeating to herself, "This is duty, this is love, this is marriage." She carried a breakfast tray into the living room. Mark sat in his wheelchair, eyes fixed on the morning news flashing across the television. The screen's glow washed his face, stripped of the warmth it once held when they were newlyweds. "Put it here," Mark gestured. Not bothering to look at her, Emily set the tray down on the coffee table. As she turned away, he added, "And stop wearing that shabby old shirt. If my mother comes by and sees it, she'll just say you don't know how to take care of yourself." Emily froze, glancing down at her faded t-shirt, the hem stained with a bit of flour from yesterday. She whispered, "I'll change." Mark said nothing, only lifted his fork and ate in silence. Emily returned to the kitchen, bitterness rising in her throat. She had once been Emily Carter, the energetic marketing director who loved fitted dresses and high heels. She had once stood at conference tables, delivering confident presentations, managing million-dollar campaigns. Now, her entire world shrank to these walls and Mark's needs. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A message from Lily M. "Free this weekend. Let's grab a coffee. I miss you." A flicker of warmth touched her chest. Lily was the only thread connecting Emily to her old life. But then Mark's voice cut in from the living room. "Emily, what did you put in these eggs? They taste bland." Emily quickly typed back, "I'll see. I'll let you know," and slipped her phone into her pocket. She hurried into the living room. Forcing a smile, "I'll get more salt." Mark dropped his fork onto the plate, his eyes full of disdain. "You're always rushing, always careless. No wonder my mother says you've never been good enough to take care of anyone." Emily lowered her head. Each word slashed her heart, but she had learned silence. By late morning, Suzanne arrived. The woman swept in wearing an elegant pearl-colored dress, holding a basket of pastries, her eyes scanning the room as though hunting for dust. "Emily, this house is getting messy. You let Mark live like this?" Emily forced a thin smile. "I cleaned this morning. Maybe I missed a bit." Suzanne sighed and turned to her son. "Poor boy. For years of suffering, and your wife still can't help much." Mark stayed quiet, lips twitching upward in faint agreement. Emily stood frozen, feeling invisible. Deep inside, a small voice whispered, "I don't deserve this. So why am I still here?" The answer, the same as always, was her wedding vow: "In sickness and in health, for as long as we both shall live." That afternoon, Emily wheeled Mark into the garden for sun therapy. The sky stretched blue and clear, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of freshly cut grass. Neighbors waved, praising her as the perfect wife. Emily smiled back. Though emptiness hollowed her chest, Mark lounged in his wheelchair, sunglasses on, soaking in the sunlight. He spoke with a mocking edge. "See, everyone thinks you're an angel. If they knew you once forgot my medicine, they wouldn't be so quick to praise." Emily's grip tightened on the handles. Her heart ached, just once, among thousands of times. And he still remembered it to condemn her. She turned her face away. Hiding the tears glittering in the evening light, by dusk, Emily stood in the kitchen preparing dinner. The chicken hissed in the pan, the savory smell filling the room. Suddenly, she caught her reflection in the window glass, a woman with tangled hair, shadowed eyes, a bent back. She barely recognized herself. For a fleeting moment, Emily wanted to drop the knife, fling open the door, and run until Mark's voice could never reach her again. But she only sighed and turned the chicken with the spatula. The front door creaked open. Suzanne returned, holding a stack of papers. "Emily, I have something we need to discuss. It's a long-term care plan for Mark. Here are some good nursing facilities. Maybe it's time you thought seriously about this." Emily nearly dropped the spoon. Long-term care plan. What did she mean? Mark sat in the living room, and in his eyes glimmered something strange, not surprise, but consent. Emily's heartbeat quickened. A shadowy dread washed over her, as though her life had been staged by someone else's hand. She pressed her lips together and turned back to the boiling pot. The steam stung her eyes. Inside, a single thought rang clear. I'm being pushed into a trap, but I don't yet know what it looks like. In the days following that unexpected conversation about a long-term care plan, the house grew heavier than usual. Emily no longer saw Suzanne as just a meddling mother-in-law, but as an accomplice with Mark in something shadowy. From their glances, from the subtle nods they exchanged, Emily felt pushed to the sidelines, like they were discussing the fate of someone absent. And that someone was her no. Mark, on the other hand, seemed lighter, as if a burden had been shared. He began talking more, recalling little stories from the past, even chuckling at times. But every time he laughed, there was a flicker in his eyes that made Emily shiver, an expression of someone hiding too much. One evening, as Emily laid out piles of bills, electricity, water, insurance on the dining table to review, Mark looked up from his laptop and said firmly, "Give them all to me. From now on, I'll handle it. You just focus on the house." Emily frowned. "I can still check them." "At least I want to know how we're spending, Emily," Mark cut in, his voice raspy with restrained anger. "You're always worrying about nonsense. It's better if I manage things. You're not good with numbers. Remember when you lost part of the company's budget years ago?" Emily froze. That had been a small mistake, quickly resolved, back when she was still a marketing director. Yet he had held on to it, waiting for the moment to pull it out and belittle her. "I only wanted," her words trailed off, silenced by his cold shake of the head. "No need to want. Just hand them over." Emily's hand trembled as she pushed the stack of papers toward him. From that moment, Mark controlled all the finances. She was left with only a small weekly allowance for groceries, every penny noted and monitored. Time slid on, and decisions no longer seemed to belong to Emily. One weekend morning, Lily called. "Want to take a walk with me? The weather's perfect. I got tickets to an art exhibition. I think you'd love it." Emily's heart lifted. But as soon as she said, "Let me ask Mark," Lily sighed on the other end. You need his permission just to go out for a few hours." Emily bit her lip. In the end, she muttered, "Maybe another time." After hanging up, she returned to the living room to find Mark staring at her. "What exhibition?" "Oh, nothing. Just my friend inviting me. You should stay home. I have things I need your help with. Don't waste time on useless stuff." Emily nodded. chore sinking like stone. The tension sharpened when Suzanne visited later that weekend. Sitting in the dining room, she swirled her teacup, her voice sweet but laced with barbs. "Emily, you look exhausted. Are you sure you can take care of Mark long-term? Young women have other options. Don't strain yourself and ruin your life." Emily forced a calm reply. "I'm fine, Mother. I can take care of him." Suzanne raised her brows, turning to Mark. "See? Always insisting. What happens when she collapses? You'll be the one suffering then." Mark stayed silent, eyes glued to his phone. No defense. No support. Emily sat opposite, hands clenched on her knees, feeling like an unwanted extra in her own marriage, dissected, judged, discussed, but never heard. That night, while Mark slept, Emily slipped out onto the balcony. The night wind tugged at her hair, carrying the smell of damp grass. She looked down the empty street, remembering her younger years, dreaming of traveling the world, of starting her own advertising firm. All of it had evaporated like smoke. A phone buzz interrupted her thoughts. From the bedroom, Mark's screen lit up with an unfamiliar number. Emily stepped closer, heart pounding. He stirred, muttering in his sleep. She froze, unable to touch it, watching the glow fade back into darkness, while suspicion coiled tight inside her. The next day, while organizing papers, Emily discovered several bank envelopes tucked into a drawer, stamped on them in bold letters, "International Transfer." She was about to open one when she heard the grind of wheelchair wheels across the floor. Mark rolled out of the bedroom, eyes locking on the envelope in her hand. "What are you doing?" His voice was sharp. "I just found these while tidying. Not your business." He snatched the envelope and stuffed it into his pocket. "You wouldn't understand. Stay out of it." Emily stood frozen. Her suspicion swelled, but the fear of being branded paranoid, hysterical, was even greater. A few days later, Lily met her at a small cafe on a quiet street corner. "You've lost so much weight. You can't go on like this. He's not the man you married anymore." Emily stirred her coffee, eyes following the tiny whirlpool in the cup. "Lily, I made a vow. In sickness and in health, but marriage goes both ways. Emily, you've sacrificed everything. What about him? Does he still love and cherish you?" Emily lifted her gaze, her eyes rimmed with red. She couldn't answer. Her mind echoed with Mark's cold stares, Suzanne's barbed words, those mysterious bank envelopes. Lily squeezed her hand. "If it gets worse, promise me you'll call." "Don't carry this alone." Emily nodded. But both of them knew it was a fragile promise. That night, as Emily carried clean laundry upstairs, she heard Mark's voice from the bedroom. The door was ajar, his tone low but distinct. "She suspects nothing. Everything is going according to plan." Emily froze, her heart hammering. What plan? Before she could listen further, the door swung open. Mark spotted her, a fleeting smile curving his lips, still awake. "Come help me sort my pills." Emily forced a smile, though her hands trembled. In the shadows, another crack split wide open, deep and jagged, threatening to drag their marriage into the abyss. That Thursday was heavy with clouds, gray skies rolling in as if heralding a storm. Emily rose early, cleaned the house, prepared Mark's breakfast, and ran to loads of laundry. Everything unfolded like the thousands of mornings over the past 4 years. Yet her chest carried a strange restlessness. All day, Mark seemed oddly pleasant. He even said the lunch was decent, a rare compliment after months of nothing but complaints. But that very ease made Emily uneasy. It felt like a mask, concealing something dangerous smoldering beneath late in the afternoon. As Emily carried a basket of laundry upstairs, she heard a voice drifting from the bedroom. At first, she thought Mark was watching television. But as she drew closer, her heart seized. It wasn't the TV. It was Mark's voice, clear, firm. with none of the frailty of a man bound to a wheelchair. Don't worry, darling. She has no idea. She still believes I can't walk. Emily froze. The shirts on top of the basket tumbled down the steps, covering her slippers. Her heart pounded, her ears roared, her eyes fixed on the narrow slit of the half-closed door. Mark's voice continued, punctuated by light laughter. Just 4 more years, and everything will be in my name. The law is clear. If I prove she's unfit to care for me, I'll get it all. The house, the accounts, everything. Then we can finally be together. Until then, she'll keep playing the free maid. The words sliced through Emily like a razor. Free maid. She staggered back, pressing against the wall, breath choking in her chest. The nights he had stayed awake, massaging his unfeeling legs. The days spent hauling him to therapy under scorching sun or pouring rain. The countless nights on a folding chair ready to leap up whenever he called, all of it reduced to those 3 cruel words. Inside, Mark lowered his voice, almost a whisper, but every word pierced through the crack like a needle. She's so pathetically naive. Every time she lifts me from the wheelchair to the bed, that pitying look in her eyes, laughable. If only you could see it. Laughter rang out Mark's laughter, sharp, carefree. Utterly at odds with the image of a crippled, suffering man, Emily trembled violently. The basket slipped from her arms, white shirts spilling across the hallway floor like blotched snow. She wanted to scream, to burst into the room and confront him, but her legs were rooted to the spot. Instead, she dropped to her knees, fumbling to gather the clothes, ears straining to catch more. Vanessa, Mark said next, this time speaking a name. Just be patient a little longer. I'll get all the paperwork in order. Once it's done, you'll move in here. She won't have any place left. The name sent Emily's head spinning. Vanessa, the physical therapist with the neat blonde ponytail, the gentle smile, the eager eyes guiding Mark through exercises. Emily had once been grateful to her, had even sent flowers after the last session. So it had all been an act. Yes, exactly. Mark laughed again. She thinks she's noble, loyal. But her blind sacrifice is the perfect proof I need that she's weak, unstable. Any judge will believe it. Emily clapped her hand over her mouth to smother a sob. Tears spilled freely, falling onto the white shirts in her lap. From inside came the scrape of a drawer, then heavy footsteps. Panic surged. She snatched up the basket, leaped to her feet. Before she could flee back to her room, the door swung open. Mark appeared in his wheelchair, his face composed, eyes flicking quickly down the hallway. Emily stood there, clutching the basket to her chest, her face drained of color. "What are you doing here?" His voice was calm, not sharp, but chillingly steady. I was bringing the laundry up," Emily stammered. Throat dry, he studied her for a moment, then smiled faintly. "You look pale. Are you feeling unwell? Go rest. Let me handle things. I'm fine, just a little tired." "Good, then listen to me. Go to the living room and rest. Don't worry, I'll be fine." With that, he turned his wheelchair and rolled smoothly down the stairs. As if no phone call had ever happened, Emily stood frozen, heart racing. His words, "Don't worry, I'll be fine," echoed like a taunt. As if he knew she had overheard and yet was confident she would do nothing. That night, Emily tossed on the narrow guest bed. The dim light of the bedside lamp threw restless gold streaks across the ceiling. Her mind replayed Mark's words. Free made, weak, unstable, take everything. Each word etched itself into her heart like a burning needle. She thought of the times she'd wept secretly in the bathroom. Suzanne's scrutinizing eyes, the suffocating years trapped inside this house. None of it was fate's cruelty. It was the deliberate design of the man she had once loved. The pain turned to anger. For the first time in 4 years, Emily felt a different fire burning inside her, not endurance, but the will to resist. She shot upright, pulled open the drawer, and grabbed her phone. Her trembling hands tapped out a message. "Lily, I need you. Urgent." The screen glowed as the message sent, then faded into darkness. Emily sat in silence, tears streaming. Lips pressed tight. For the first time in 4 years, she knew she would not remain silent. The next morning, Emily woke in a haze, half dreaming, half awake. Her eyes were heavy after a night of nightmares. Her ears still echoing with Mark's knife-edged words, "Free maid, outside." The sky was gray, rain tapping on the eaves. She stepped out of the guest room, about to head to the kitchen, when voices carried from the living room. Suzanne's voice, sharp and cold. "You need to finish this. Mark, you can't let it drag on." "I know," Mark replied, his tone low. "But it takes time. If we push too fast, Emily will get suspicious." Emily froze on the stairs, her fingers gripping the wooden banister. Her heart pounded so hard she thought they might hear it. "Time only increases your risk," Suzanne pressed. "I've spoken to the lawyer. If we prove Emily is unstable, incapable of caring for you, you can claim all the assets. You might even have grounds to put her in an institution." Silence. Then Mark chuckled softly. "She's already fragile. Just a few little pieces of evidence, and that's enough. Everyone will believe it." Emily's feet went numb, as though she stood on ice. They weren't just plotting to strip her of her marriage, they wanted her dignity. Her freedom. All morning she busied herself in the kitchen, forcing a facade of normalcy, her mind in turmoil. Mark and Suzanne spoke freely under her roof, certain she was too dim to ever catch on. The contempt stung, but in its sting grew a strange defiance. At noon, Mark called out, "Emily, get me the folder from the office drawer. I need to review something with the lawyer." The word lawyer made her chest tighten. She went into the office, pulled open a drawer. Among the files, she glimpsed a blue folder labeled Psychological Evaluation Report. A chill swept through her. She shoved the drawer shut quickly before Mark grew suspicious. That afternoon, Lily arrived with 2 steaming lattes. Sitting at the dining table, Emily whispered, her voice trembling, "Lily, they want to have me committed. They've got some kind of psychological report." Lily slammed her cup down, eyes flashing. "We can't let this go. This isn't just betrayal, it's a crime. They want to destroy you, but I don't have proof. Only what I overheard. Then we'll make proof." Emily looked at her friend and saw, not just sympathy, but steel-hard resolve. For the first time, she wasn't alone. In the days that followed, Mark acted unusually attentive. He asked after her health, suggested she rest more. But each comment carried a second edge, quiet daggers to her heart. "You look so tired. Maybe you really should see a psychiatrist. I heard you talking in your sleep last night. You must be under a lot of stress. Are you sure you're okay? I worry you're losing control." Emily understood he was building a case, fabricating instability. And Suzanne would be the perfect witness to back it up. She bit down her replies, nodding meekly on the surface, but inside. Each word was etched deep. One night after Mark had gone to bed, Emily crept into the kitchen, phone in hand, and texted Lily, "I think they're about to do something. I need a plan." Minutes later, Lily called back, voice low but urgent. "Meet me tomorrow. Bring any documents you found. We'll start fighting back." Emily clutched the phone, fear and a rising flame of resolve colliding in her chest. The next morning, while tidying the office, she pretended to organize papers and secretly snapped photos of the psychological evaluation report. The words made her blood run cold. Notes about signs of depression, paranoid tendencies, inability to care for herself. She had never met any specialist. Clearly, Mark and Suzanne had fabricated the report. She tucked her phone away, heart pounding, and went to meet Lily at their usual cafe. Lily spread the photos across the table, frowning. "This is our first piece of evidence. They want to box you in, but we'll flip the game. I know a private investigator. If Mark can actually walk, all we need is one photo and the whole scheme collapses." Emily swallowed hard. The idea was terrifying and liberating. But if he catches us, he's capable of anything. Then that only proves he's dangerous. Em, you've lived like a prisoner for 4 years. It's time to take back your freedom. Emily looked from her friend to the damning pages. Her hand clenched tight. From this moment, the game had changed. That evening, Emily returned home. Mark sat in the living room, eyes on the TV, a faint smirk on his lips. "Where were you?" "You didn't tell me." Emily smiled lightly, setting her bag down. "I just picked up a few things." He tilted his head, eyes sharp. Then he nodded slowly. "Fine, but next time, tell me first. I don't want you losing control and wandering off somewhere." Emily swallowed her anger, nodding. But inside she thought, "You're the one who'll lose control sooner than you think." That night, with Mark asleep, Emily sat alone on the balcony. Moonlight glimmered on raindrops, still clinging to the railing. She drew a deep breath, feeling a new strength rise in her chest. They wanted to trap her in lies and darkness. But for the first time, Emily was no longer the prey. She whispered to herself, "Let's see who gets caught in the trap." 3 weeks after that cafe meeting, Emily lived in a constant state of tension. By day, she played the role of the devoted wife, cooking meals, doing laundry, wheeling Mark into the garden, pouring tea for her mother-in-law when she visited. By night, when the house fell silent, she texted Lily, plotting strategy, arranging schedules with the private investigator. Lily had hired a quiet but sharp, middle-aged man named Tony. Tony made no promises, only nodded when given photos of Mark and Vanessa. "Don't worry. If he can walk, I'll capture it." Emily didn't know which she feared more, the proof that would damn him, or the moment she'd have to face it. Each day she oscillated, half craving the truth, half dreading its arrival. One gloomy evening, Lily called, her voice hushed. "There's news. Meet me tomorrow. I'll give it to you." Emily ended the call, sitting frozen. Her whole body trembled, cold sweat breaking across her skin. The truth of things she had both longed for and feared was closing in. The next day, in Lily's small living room, the wooden table became a place of reckoning. Tony laid down a thick folder, inside, printed color photographs, receipts, and notes. "These were taken over the past 2 weeks," he said simply. "There's no doubt anymore." Emily opened the folder, and her heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. The first photo, Mark and Vanessa leaving a luxurious Italian restaurant. Mark in a crisp white shirt and slacks, walking tall, his stride confident. Vanessa on his arm, smiling brightly. The second, the two of them at the reception desk of a small suburban hotel. Mark bending to sign a form, his hand resting lightly on Vanessa's waist. The third, walking through a park together. Mark holding a coffee cup, laughing healthy, vigorous, alive. Emily's hand shook as she touched the glossy surface. The man in the pictures was her husband, but not the crippled Mark she lifted into bed every night. This was another Mark, free, full of life, and unfaithful. "No, it can't be," her voice cracked. Tony shook his head. "All telephoto shots, time-stamped. They're real." Lily put a hand on her friend's shoulder. "Em, you need to face it. This isn't suspicion anymore. This is evidence." Emily turned the pages. The photos grew crueler. Mark and Vanessa kissing passionately inside a car. Mark hauling a suitcase into a rented hourly apartment. Mark walking out of a supermarket with bags in both hands, those strong legs carrying him without a wheelchair. Each photo was another knife, cutting into a heart already riddled with scars. "How long?" Emily asked, voice hoarse. Tony flipped through his notebook. "According to the hotel receptionist, they've been regulars for at least a year and a half, maybe longer. But documented evidence goes back 18 months. 18 months. During that time, how many nights had Emily massaged those lifeless legs? How many times had she berated herself for not caring enough? How many invitations had she turned down with the excuse, "Mark needs me," while he was secretly with someone else? Emily dropped her head onto the table, sobs tearing free. Lily wrapped her arms around her, letting her cry until her breath broke in jagged gasps. "It doesn't stop there," Tony said, his calm voice cutting through. "He's been moving money." Emily lifted her to reddened eyes. Tony slid out another stack of papers. "These are bank statements. Over the past 3 years, steady transfers of $5,000 to $15,000 from the joint account to an account in Switzerland. More than $200,000 in total." Emily bit her lip until she nearly drew blood. That money she had once contributed from her bonuses before she quit her job. Money she thought was for Mark's treatments. Their shared savings. Now, all of it had been funneled into his escape. "Plan with another woman. He's been planning this for a long time," Lily said, her voice hot with fury. "He hasn't just betrayed you, he wants to leave you with nothing. This isn't just a marriage problem. This is criminal." Emily sat in stunned silence, the world tilting. The photos lay scattered across the table like bloodstains on white cloth. "So what do I do now?" Tony closed the folder and slid it toward her. "Gather more carefully. Don't let him suspect. Men like Mark, they're dangerous. Manipulators. But it's that arrogance that makes them sloppy." Lily squeezed her hand. "We'll wait for the right moment. And when it comes, he'll lose everything." That night, Emily returned home late. Mark sat in the living room, his wheelchair positioned neatly, his fingers interlaced on his lap. He glanced at the clock, then at her. Out all evening. No message. Emily forced a weak smile. "I was with Lily. She needed to talk." "Good." Mark nodded, lips curling slightly. "It's healthy. You should go out more. I'd hate for you to get too stressed." The last words hung in the air like a veiled threat. Emily smiled faintly, walked past him, heading upstairs in the pocket of her coat. The folder of photos and statements rested inside a plastic sleeve. With every step, she felt as if she carried her very survival. Before bed, Emily pulled out her phone and looked once more at the photo of Mark and Vanessa hand in hand. Pain surged, but this time it was laced with something else. Determination. He thought she was just a free maid. He was wrong. Emily whispered into the darkness, "You'll pay for every day I sacrificed." In the days after receiving Tony's photos, Emily moved through the house like an actress on stage. Every smile, every gesture of care toward Mark was a mask. Outwardly, she remained the patient, devoted wife. Inwardly, every move was calculated, carefully recording details, signs, and words that might later become evidence. Mark seemed oblivious to the shift. He still believed in the script he had written for her. Emily was weak, blind, easy to control. That very arrogance gave Emily space to breathe, time to prepare. One morning, as Emily carried in his breakfast, Mark looked up from the table and asked with an air of concern, "Are you sleeping well? You've looked so worn lately. Maybe you're under stress." Emily forced a faint smile. "I'm fine. Just a little tired." Mark nodded thoughtfully, his eyes gleaming. "I think you should see a psychiatrist. I'm worried about you. What if you lose control?" The words sounded gentle, but they cut like a hidden blade. Emily knew he was crafting another piece of evidence for the plan to have her committed. She inhaled deeply, then nodded. Maybe you're right. I'll think about it. As soon as she left the room, her hand clenched the tray so hard her knuckles turned white. That evening, Suzanne arrived. Sweeping in with her usual superiority, she eyed Emily from head to toe. "Emily, you look terrible. Are you sure you're all right? Mark told me you've been crying at night." Emily stiffened. She had always hidden her tears in the bathroom, under the cover of running water. Mark must have reported her. "I'm fine, Mother. Just a little pressure." Suzanne sighed. "See, I told you, you can't handle this for long. You should think about your own future." Emily smiled faintly. "I'll consider it." Inside, she screamed. "They're forcing me into the trap. But I won't let them win." Lily became her lifeline. They met secretly a few times at a quiet cafe down the street. Emily recounted everything. Mark's veiled remarks, Suzanne's scrutiny. Even the way Mark staged himself as afraid of Emily's supposed outbursts. "You need to be careful," Lily warned, voice taut. "He's clearly trying to paint you as unstable. But that can backfire. If we can catch him faking in front of a doctor, the whole act collapses." Emily nodded. Tony planted a small recorder in the office. "If Mark puts on a show again, we'll have proof." The opportunity came sooner than expected. A week later, Mark's neurologist came for a routine visit. Emily stood in the corner, pretending to take notes. "Any feeling in your legs?" the doctor asked. Mark groaned, shaking his head. "No, still numb. Sometimes spasms, very painful." Emily noticed his fingers clench into a fist, then release like he was suppressing a reflex. The doctor tapped gently along his shin. Mark screwed up his face, shouting, "Ah! It feels like electricity running through me." "Doctor, please note in your reports, worse now." The doctor eyed him with mild suspicion, but continued writing. Emily stood silently, her heart burning with fury. Beneath the desk, Tony's recorder captured every word of the performance. That night, once Mark slept, Emily texted Lily, "We've got it." He acted in front of the doctor. "Full recording." Lily replied instantly, "Perfect. That's a key piece." "Stay patient." Emily set down the phone, sitting by the window. Outside, the streetlights cast mottled gold across the pavement. For the first time in years, she didn't feel completely powerless. But Mark didn't stop. More and more, his concern cut like poisoned arrows. "You forgot to turn off the stove yesterday. Nearly burned the house down. Are you sure you're still thinking clearly? You should rest more. People might think you're depressed. I worry about you so much. Emily, don't make me take you in for treatment." Every word was a dart aimed at her dignity and her sanity. Yet Emily never reacted. She learned to nod, to smile, even to feign fragility so Mark would believe his plan was working. Inside, she recorded everything, later writing it down in a notebook hidden in her closet. One night, as Emily folded blankets, she heard Mark speaking on the phone in his office. "She's almost broken. Just a bit more pressure and she's snap. Then the psych file will prove everything." Emily stood in the hallway, her hand trembling. But instead of tears, a cold smile touched her lips. He had no idea she had changed. He thought she was collapsing, when in fact, he was giving her more evidence. Days later, Tony sent a message. "Got it?" He was walking with Vanessa. Clear video. Emily sat in the kitchen, her phone shaking in her hands. Video, the final piece. Years of deceit about to be unmasked. She looked around the familiar house, the curtains, the framed wedding photo, the wheelchair Mark sat in every day. Part of her ached with grief for the love she'd lost. But another part burned stronger. Resolve. She whispered to herself, "Keep playing, Mark. But you don't know I'm playing too. And this time, I'll win." The video Tony had sent left Emily unable to look away. The footage was crystal clear. Mark striding across a parking lot, a shopping bag in hand, Vanessa beside him, the two chatting and laughing easily. No wheelchair. No grimaces of pain. Only a man strong, free, and unfaithful. Emily sat in the dark kitchen for hours, replaying the clip. She imagined this scene projected before everyone. Friends, neighbors. Her mother-in-law, the people who had praised Mark as the brave husband and lauded her as the devoted wife. A plan sparked in her mind. Quietly submitting evidence to the court wouldn't work. Mark was too cunning. He would twist the story, accuse her of fabricating it. What she needed was a moment beyond denial, a public unmasking one he could never escape. The next day, Emily met Lily at their usual cafe. As Emily whispered her idea, Lily's eyes lit up. A party. For years since the accident, yes, Em. He won't suspect a thing. He'll think you just want to play the role of the sacrificial wife, like always. Who do we invite? Emily asked softly. The right witnesses, his mother. A few close friends who always praised your marriage, neighbors for weight. And of course, the lawyer and Tony. Emily swallowed hard. Even the thought made her pulse race. But Lily's gaze was steady. This will be the final stage, and he'll expose himself. For the next week, Emily played the busy wife preparing for a party. She scrubbed every corner of the house, bought fresh flowers, planned Mark's favorite dishes. At first, Mark objected. I don't want people seeing me like this. You know I hate crowds. Emily pretended to plead. Just close friends. I want everyone to see how far we've come. It would make me happy. Mark sighed, his expression softening not from care, but because he believed the image of a lonely wife desperate for recognition would strengthen the psychological file. All right, he said, but keep it small and make sure the house is spotless. Emily nodded, hiding the cold gleam in her eyes. Those days she lived as two people. By day, before Mark and Suzanne, she was the same Emily, quiet, dutiful, carrying every burden. By night, when the house sank into silence, she sat with Lily and Tony in the small living room. Dissecting every detail, Tony tapped a diagram of the living room. The camera goes, here covers the whole space. Another one disguised in the vase. Recorder in the cabinet. Every word he says, we'll have it. Emily shivered, fear and resolve mingling. She knew she was gambling everything. If Mark discovered her, she could lose not just her plan, but her freedom. Yet if it worked, it would be his undoing. Late one night, after Mark had gone to bed, Emily stood alone in the kitchen, slicing vegetables. The knife's blade flashed under the warm light. For a moment, she froze, staring at the steel. One strike, the thought flickered, dark and dangerous. But she set the knife down, hands trembling. No, she wouldn't become like him. Justice would come not through blood, but through truth. She wiped her tears, picked up the knife again, and chopped steadily, the rhythm of the blade against the board beating like her heart, keeping her steady. On Friday, Suzanne stopped by, finding Emily fussing with flowers and table linens. She smirked. Why go to all this trouble? Who remembers a party? Mark's the important one, not you. Emily bowed her head. I just want everyone to be happy. Suzanne nodded, patting her shoulder. You're a good girl. But remember, Mark needs protecting. If you can't manage, let me handle it. I won't let anyone ruin my son's future. Emily smiled faintly. But once Suzanne turned away, her jaw tightened. Ruin his future. Tomorrow, you'll see the truth you never wanted to believe. The night before the party, Emily barely slept. She lay in the dark, listening to Mark's steady breathing from the next room. Each breath was a reminder. This man had deceived her for 4 years, turning her into his free maid. Silently, she touched the pocket of her robe, where a USB drive held all of Tony's evidence. Photos, recordings, videos. She whispered to herself, "Tomorrow, it all ends." Saturday morning, a drizzle fell outside. Emily stood by the window, watching raindrops trace paths down the glass. A strange sense of foreboding stirred inside her, not just of a storm outside, but of one about to tear through her life. Mark called from the living room. "Emily, are you ready? Wear the blue dress. Don't let my mother scold you again." "I know," she replied softly. She put on the pale blue dress, staring at her reflection in the mirror. No longer the worn, bowed woman. In her tired eyes glinted something new, the light of resolve, as the first guests arrived. The house filled with the scent of flowers and food. Mark sat upright in his wheelchair, face masked in calm dignity. Suzanne hovered proudly at his side. Friends, neighbors, those who had admired the story of the devoted wife and the resilient husband, all gathered. They laughed, chatted, offered wine and compliments. Emily moved among them with gentle smiles, though her heart pounded like a drum. She knew that within hours, that mask on Mark's face would crack. In the kitchen, Lily leaned close and whispered, "The cameras are ready. Once Vanessa arrives, the show begins." Emily drew a deep breath, nodding. Her heart trembled, but with strength. The party began like any other gathering: laughter, clinking glasses, compliments about Emily's patience and Mark's courage. But beneath the pleasant surface, storm waited to break. Rain pattered softly outside the porch, a backdrop to the anniversary party marking for years since the accident. The living room glowed with warm light. Crystal vases brimmed with fresh flowers. A white linen tablecloth covered the dining table, and Mark's favorite dishes, roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, apple pie, were laid out. It felt like a cozy family gathering. Mark sat at the center of it all, in his wheelchair, playing the leading man. His voice carried, rich and carefully weighted with emotion. "There were days I lost hope, thought I'd never get past the pain. But Emily, she was there, patient every step. Without her, I wouldn't be alive today." Suzanne nodded, eyes misting. Friends applauded. A neighbor exclaimed, "Truly inspirational." "Emily, you're extraordinary." Emily smiled gently, her hands folded in her lap. Outwardly, she was still the image of the devoted wife. Inside, her heart hammered, waiting for the decisive moment. Around 4:20, Emily rose quietly. "Please, enjoy yourselves. I'll just bring out dessert." Lily slipped into the kitchen with her, whispering, "Vanessa's car just pulled up." "Right on schedule." Emily nodded, inhaling deeply. The storm had arrived. At 4:30, the front door opened. A startled female voice rang out, "Mark, why are there so many cars here?" "You told me." Emily was out the room, froze. Every eye turned to the door. Vanessa stepped inside, rain-damp blonde hair clinging to her face, handbag in hand. She froze at the sight of the crowded living room. Suzanne frowned. "And you are?" Emily emerged from the kitchen, carrying a tray of apple pie, her voice calm and cutting. "Oh, Mark, aren't you going to introduce your friend?" Mark's face blanched. He stammered, This is Vanessa, a former therapist. She just came to drop off some old things with her own key." Emily asked lightly, the words chilling. "Interesting." The silence deepened. Vanessa flushed, her eyes darting to Mark for an escape. Emily set the tray down, straightened her back. Her voice rang sharp, every word like a blade. Perhaps everyone should hear the truth. "For 4 years, I believed Mark was paralyzed after the accident. I gave up my career, my friends, even myself to care for him. But 3 weeks ago, I overheard a phone call and discovered it was all an act." Suzanne gasped. "That can't be." The doctor said. Emily locked eyes with Mark. "Would you like to stand up and prove it to your mother?" Mark trembled, sweat breaking across his brow. You're delusional, Emily. Too stressed." "Imagining things?" Emily laughed bitterly. "Imagining? Then what about these?" She nodded to Lily, who pulled a folder of photos from her bag and passed them around. Suzanne picked up the first photo. Her eyes widened at the sight of her son striding through a park, hand in hand with Vanessa. "No, it can't be," she whispered Tom. A neighbor held another. Mark signing papers at a hotel desk. Grinning. "Mark, you lied to us." The room erupted in murmurs, faces aghast. Emily stepped forward, standing behind Mark's wheelchair. Her voice was ice. "For years, Mark, for years I was your free maid, while you walked freely, cheated, and funneled our savings overseas. You even planned to frame me as unstable and have me locked away. But tonight, it ends. Enough." Mark barked. "You're fabricating all of this." Emily leaned close, whispering in his ear. "Then stand up. Mark, show them you're really paralyzed." His face went sheet white. In a moment of panic, his body betrayed him. He pushed up from the chair. Legs straightening, knees tensing long enough for everyone to see. Then he collapsed back down. The room exploded. Suzanne screamed, hands over her mouth. Janet dropped her glass of wine, shards scattering. Tom stepped back, disgust twisting his face. Emily straightened, eyes blazing. "You can't fake it anymore." Mark darted glances around the room. Pale, sweat streaming. I just made progress recently." "I wanted to surprise you progress." Emily cut in. "Progress enough to sneak your mistress into hotels. Progress enough to drain our money overseas." She turned to Suzanne, placing the bank statements in her hands. "Here, proof. Over $200,000 gone. Your son planned to leave me with nothing." Suzanne's hands shook as she flipped through the pages, her face draining of color. "Mark, did you really do this?" "No, Mother." Mark reached out, but she shoved his hand away. Vanessa stood frozen near the door, face chalk white. I didn't know about the money." "Oh, you knew more than you admit," Lily snapped, her voice sharp. "We have video. We have everything." The room fell into heavy silence. Mark bowed his head. Every excuse strangled in his throat. Emily looked around at the gathering. Those who had blindly believed in Mark now faced the truth. Tears welled, but her voice was steady. "I sacrificed for years of my life, but from this moment, I am no longer a free maid. I am the woman who will reclaim everything that is mine." Suzanne broke down, sobbing into a chair. "My son, how did you become this?" Emily turned away, too exhausted to watch. She walked into the hallway, opened the door, and breathed in the cold, rain-soaked air. The drizzle washed over her face like a cleansing. Inside, chaos, rain shouts, tears, confusion. But Emily no longer trembled. She knew the curtain had finally fallen. The room, after the instant Mark had accidentally stood, was like a bomb had gone off. For several seconds, no one spoke. Everyone simply stared at him, the man who for 4 years had been praised as a symbol of resilience, now revealed with strong, working legs. Suzanne was the first to break the silence. She dropped a stack of bank statements onto the table, her hands trembling. "Mark, you lied to me, to all of us?" Mark stammered, face ashen. "No. It's not like that. I only wanted to protect you from the truth, protect me." Suzanne cut him off, her voice a near scream. "Protect me by turning your wife into a servant, by making me believe you were suffering while you enjoyed yourself with her." Vanessa stepped back, her back pressed to the wall. She whispered, "Mark, I didn't sign off on the money. I didn't know Emily stood nearby, silent, watching." Tears still clung to her cheeks, but her eyes were steely now. This was the moment she had waited for, when every mask came crashing down. Tom, the longtime neighbor, drew a deep breath and fixed his gaze on Mark. I admired you. I told my son, look at Mr. Mark disabled, yet still living positively, and you turned it all into a joke. Janet, Tom's wife, choked on her words. Emily has been exhausted caring for you. And you? Sneaking into hotels with your mistress, draining money into hidden accounts. You're disgusting. Every eye in the room bore into Mark hunger, revulsion, disappointment. Mark flung his hands up, desperate. Listen to me. Emily made this up. She's obsessed. She recorded me, spied on me, fabricated everything. This isn't evidence, it's slander. But Lily immediately pulled out her phone and pressed play. The room filled with Mark's own voice from the recording. She's nothing but a free maid. Just a few more years, and I'll have it all. His voice, clear, unmistakable. Suzanne collapsed into a chair, her head in her hands. Oh God, my son. Emily stepped forward, facing Mark directly. Her voice trembled slightly, but was resolute. You say I made this up. Then explain these photos. Explain the missing money. Explain why you stood the moment, I asked. Do you have anything left to say, Mark? Mark opened his mouth, but no words came. His eyes darted around, searching for an alibi, but there were none. Vanessa avoided his gaze. Friends and neighbors shook their heads, turning away. Suzanne sobbed, unable to even look at him. The room that had once celebrated him now became a silent courtroom. Every person a witness against him in that moment. Mark was no longer the charming, smooth man Emily had once loved. He was just a small, exposed fraud, trembling before the truth. You stole 4 years of my life, Emily said, tears sliding down her face, her voice cutting firm. I sacrificed everything because I thought you needed me. But really, you only needed a puppet to hide your crimes. Mark slammed his hand against the armrest, shouting, No. I did it because I wanted freedom. I was trapped in this marriage. Emily, you don't understand. No, Mark. Emily's voice rang through the room. I understand perfectly. You never wanted this marriage. You only wanted the money and a free maid. But you forgot one thing. Even a maid can get angry, and the truth cannot be buried forever. No one defended him. Even Vanessa whispered, I can't do this anymore. Mark, I never signed up for fraud. He turned on her, eyes blazing. Vanessa, don't leave me. You promised me you'd divorce her. That this was temporary. But look around, everyone knows now. I won't be dragged down with you. Vanessa hurried to the door. Leaving him behind, Suzanne rose, her eyes red, staring at her son with raw disappointment. You made fools of us all. I can't believe you would do this to the woman who cared for you every single day. I have nothing left to say. She grabbed her handbag and left the house without looking back. The door shut. Mark sat abandoned by both his mother and his mistress. Emily looked around. Friends and neighbors, once admirers, now shook their heads, sighing, unable to meet his eyes. The air was thick with disgust and betrayal. Mark sat trembling in his chair, fists clenched. But there was no remorse in his eyes, only fear of losing everything. You thought I'd stay silent? Emily asked, her voice hoarse but steady. No, I'll take all of this to court. I will reclaim what's mine. After the party ended and the guests departed, the house sank into a heavy silence. Mark sat motionless, words spent. Emily stood at the doorway, inhaling deeply. She knew the legal battle lay ahead. But today had changed everything. Mark's perfect mask had shattered right before the eyes of those who once admired him. And for Emily, this was the beginning of freedom. After the explosive party, Emily's house became the center of neighborhood gossip. Overnight, the image of the unfortunate husband and devoted wife shattered. In its place came whispers of the man who faked paralysis to steal assets and the wife. Courageous enough to expose the truth, Mark could no longer control the narrative. Just 2 days later, Tony brought Emily good news. The lawyer had agreed to take the case. Photos, videos, recordings, everything had been organized. Ready for court, Emily sat in the living room, her fingers brushing the folder's edges. She thought back to those 4 years' sleepless nights, cold meals, cruel jabs. Every page of evidence felt like a certificate of her suffering, but also proof of the truth. "He won't get away with it," Lily said, eyes burning with resolve. "You've endured enough, Emily." Emily nodded silently. Inside her, hatred had ebbed, replaced by an unfamiliar calm. The trial opened 3 months later. On the first day, the courtroom was packed, neighbors, friends, even journalists. Mark sat at the defendant's table, looking years older. The dark suit could not hide his trembling shoulders, nor his panicked eyes. The prosecutor began. The defendant, Mark Carter, stands accused of financial fraud, falsifying medical records and deliberately deceiving his spouse to seize assets. One by one, photos appeared on the large screen. The audience murmured at the sight of Mark walking freely. Laughing with Vanessa, Mark tried to rise and protest, but his voice faltered. I was just recovering gradually. I didn't want to say anything for fear of false hope immediately." The recording played through the speaker's his own voice, undeniable. "She's nothing but a free maid. Just a few more years and I'll have it all." The room fell silent. The truth was indisputable. Emily was called to the stand. She wore a simple beige dress, her hair loose, her eyes steady. "Mrs. Carter," the attorney asked, "what has your life been like these past 4 years?" Emily drew a deep breath and spoke. Of nights spent lifting Mark into bed, of mornings cleaning and dressing him, of the career opportunities, friends, and families she had sacrificed to give him everything. Her voice did not shake, though it caught at times. "For love, I turned myself into a shadow." But that love was only a cover for a ruthless plan. Several people in the courtroom wiped away tears in the end. The jury deliberated for only a few hours. The verdict? Guilty. Mark Carter was sentenced to 4 years in prison for fraud and falsification, and ordered to repay the stolen funds. When the gavel struck, Mark slumped forward, his face drained. Emily looked at him one last time. No anger remained, only emptiness. The man she once loved had died long ago. Before her sat only a fraud facing his fate. Walking out of the courthouse, Emily inhaled deeply. The early summer sun shone bright, warm but gentle. Lily rushed forward and threw her arms around her. "You did it. Em, you're free now." Emily smiled her first unburdened smile in years. "Free," she repeated, as though confirming it was real. In the months that followed, Emily rented a small apartment downtown. It had a large window overlooking the park. Mornings filled with birdsong and the scent of coffee drifting from the cafe across the street. She bought a few plants, hung colorful paintings. Every detail reminded her. This was her space. With Lily's support, Emily began a blog, sharing her journey about manipulation, psychological abuse, and the way out. To her surprise, the blog quickly gained thousands of followers. Women from everywhere wrote, sharing their stories, thanking her for speaking out. A women's rights nonprofit invited her to collaborate, leading discussion sessions. For the first time, Emily stood before a room full of people, speaking about her darkest years and the greatest lesson she had learned. Love does not mean sacrificing yourself until you disappear. If a relationship turns you into a shadow, that's not love, it's captivity. Applause thundered. Emily smiled, feeling new strength sprouting within her. One afternoon, while sorting her bookshelf, Emily found her old wedding photo. She studied the younger version of herself, bright-eyed, hopeful. She didn't cry. Instead, she placed the photo into a box and tucked it away in her heart. One door had closed. Another had opened. That evening, Emily sat on her balcony, the breeze cool against her skin. She sipped tea, gazing at the city lights. Mark's voice echoed faintly in her mind. Free maid, but this time. She smiled. Yes, I was a free maid once, she whispered. But now I am free, and this is only the beginning. Moonlight bathed her face, pure and gentle. Emily leaned back, eyes drifting shut. For the first time in years, she felt peace. Sometimes, you have to walk through the darkest years to realize true love never asks us to disappear. Emily thought she had lost everything, but in the moment of collapse, she found her worth gained a new life. If you've ever carried the weight of a love that wasn't worthy, remember, you are not alone, and you deserve a love built on respect. Thank you for listening. With Snail Story, leave me a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from. And don't forget to like and subscribe so that together, we can keep opening new chapters every day, slowly but with strength.